The Philippines. December 1941. A military hospital falls silent in the middle of the night. 120 nurses vanished. Their uniforms still hanging in neat rows. Beds unmade, as if they left in a hurry. Medical supplies scattered across the floor. But this wasn't a mystery. This was war. And one of those nurses, a woman whose name you've never heard, would go on to save more lives than almost any single person in World War II. Her name was Lieutenant Vivian Bullwinkel. And this is the story of how she survived the unsurvivable, and became a hero the world forgot. February 12, 1942. Singapore is falling. The British Empire's so-called impregnable fortress is crumbling under the weight of the Japanese advance. Bombs rain from the sky. Buildings collapse. Fire consumes the harbor. And in the chaos, 65 Australian nurses are ordered to evacuate. They board a ship called the Brook, a small, overcrowded vessel meant to carry them to safety. Vivian Bullwinkel, just 26 years old, clutches her medical bag as the ship pulls away from the burning city. She looks back at Singapore one last time. She doesn't know she'll never see it again. For 2 days, they sail south toward Java. The nurses try to rest. They sing to keep their spirits up. Some write letters to families they may never see again. And then, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, the sky darkens. Japanese bombers. The first explosion hits the engine room. The second tears through the deck. Women scream. Metal groans. The ship is going down. Vivian grabs a life jacket and jumps into the oil-slicked water. Around her, the ocean is a nightmare, wreckage, fire, bodies. She swims toward a lifeboat, her arms burning, lungs screaming for air. 22 nurses make it to a lifeboat. They drift for hours under the scorching sun, praying for land. And finally, they see it. A beach. Bangka Island. They think they're saved. They have no idea what's waiting for them. The nurses drag themselves onto the sand. Their uniforms are torn. Their skin blistered from the sun and salt. But they're alive. There are others on the beach. British soldiers, civilians, even women and children. All survivors from other ships. All exhausted. All relieved. They decide to surrender. What else can they do? They're unarmed. Wounded. Miles from any help. And then the Japanese soldiers arrive. At first, it seems routine. The soldiers separate the men from the women. Vivian watches as the male prisoners are marched around a headland, out of sight. Then she hears the gunfire. Short. Sharp. Final. Her blood runs cold. The soldiers return. They don't speak. They simply gesture. The women are ordered to walk into the ocean. 22 nurses. Vivian among them. They wade into the water, hip deep, the waves lapping at their waists. Some of them are crying. Others are silent, faces blank with shock. Vivian turns to the nurse beside her. "I think they're going to shoot us," she whispers. The woman doesn't answer. And then the soldiers raise their rifles. The first volley tears through the line. Bodies fall. The water turns red. Screams drown in the surf. Vivian feels a burning pain. A bullet through her side. She collapses into the water, limp, pretending to be dead. The shooting stops. The soldiers check the bodies, bayoneting anyone still moving. Vivian doesn't breathe. Doesn't flinch. Blood seeps from her wound, mixing with the salt water. She waits. And waits. Finally, the soldiers leave. The tide carries the bodies out to sea. Vivian floats among the dead, barely conscious, the pain in her side unbearable. She is the only one still alive. Hours pass. Maybe days. Vivian doesn't know anymore. She crawls out of the ocean, collapsing on the sand. Everything hurts. Her wound is infected. She has no food. No water. No idea where to go. She thinks about giving up. It would be so easy. To just lie there. To let the jungle take her. But something inside her refuses. Maybe it's her training, nurses don't quit. Maybe it's the faces of the women who died beside her. Maybe it's just the stubborn human will to live. She gets up. She stumbles into the jungle, using leaves to cover her wound. She finds a stream and drinks until she's sick. She eats wild fruit, not knowing if it's poisonous. And then, miraculously, she finds another survivor, a British soldier named Kingsley. He's been shot through the stomach, barely clinging to life. Vivian doesn't hesitate. With no medical supplies, no antibiotics, no sterile equipment, she does what she can. She cleans his wound with boiled water. She makes bandages from her own torn uniform. She stays with him through the fever, the delirium, the pain. For 12 days, they hide in the jungle. And against all odds, he survives. But then the Japanese find them. Vivian expects to be executed on the spot. Instead, they're taken prisoner. For the next 3 years, she's held in a series of brutal POW camps. Starvation. Disease. Forced labor. But she never stops being a nurse. With no medicine, she treats infected wounds with coconut oil. With no bandages, she tears up her own clothes. She delivers babies. She comforts the dying. She saves lives with nothing but her bare hands and her refusal to give up. Other prisoners later said she saved hundreds. Some say closer to 2,000. And through it all, she carries a secret. She tells no one about the massacre. If the Japanese find out she's a witness, they'll kill her. So she stays silent. And she survives. August 1945. The war ends. Vivian is freed from the camp, weighing less than 90 pounds. She's unrecognizable, gaunt, scarred, haunted. But alive. She returns to Australia, and finally, she speaks. She tells the world about Bangka Island. About the 22 nurses who walked into the ocean. About the massacre that should never be forgotten. Her testimony leads to war crimes trials. Justice, however small, is served. But Vivian doesn't seek fame. She doesn't write a best-selling memoir or tour the world as a hero. She goes back to nursing. She dedicates her life to helping others, quietly, humbly, without fanfare. For decades, most people have no idea who she is. But those who knew her, they never forgot. They called her the bravest woman they ever met. Vivian Bullwinkel died in 2000, at the age of 84. She was the last surviving nurse from that beach. And before she passed, she said something that stays with me. I didn't do anything special. I was just a nurse. I did what I was trained to do. But here's the truth. Courage isn't always loud. It isn't always celebrated. Sometimes it's a woman standing in the ocean, refusing to let go of hope. Sometimes it's 12 days in a jungle, refusing to let a stranger die. Sometimes it's 3 years in hell, refusing to stop caring. Vivian Bullwinkel saved thousands of lives. Not because she had power. Not because she had weapons. But because she refused to give up. And maybe that's the real lesson. When the world is falling apart, when everything seems hopeless, when you think you can't go on, you keep going. You do the next right thing. You save one life. And then another. And another. Because that's what heroes do. Not the ones we remember. But the ones we should never forget. Rest in peace, Lieutenant Vivian Bullwinkel. Your story will not be forgotten. Don't just watch, share this story so the world never forgets.